Hello, so I did my media analysis project on the TV show Friends, and I chose several different clips. I have three of them total. Unfortunately, I am using Screencast-O-Matic, and it is not going to, for some reason, let me use the audio from my computer, so I can play the clips, but you wouldn't be able to hear them. So I am just going to let you go back and view them on your own. The first one, just to give a recap, is when Ross's son Ben is playing with a Barbie doll instead of a more quote-unquote masculine toy, and Ross gets upset about it. Clip number 2 is whenever Ross and Rachel hire the male nanny, and Ross is upset about it. And clip number 3 is whenever Monica is made fun of for being in a leadership position as the head chef at a restaurant, and she hires Joey to be her gopher person so that she can pretend to fire him so that she can act a little bit more in a leadership position. So for clip number 1, which is Ben and the doll, it involves gender stereotyping, and gender stereotypes are simplistic descriptions of the supposed quote-unquote masculine male or feminine female. So in this clip, Susan walks in and is with Carol, and they have Ben, and Ross says that he has a son that is playing with a doll, and Susan asks, so he's got a doll, what's the big deal? Unless you're afraid he's going to grow up to go into show business, implying that just because he's playing with a Barbie doll instead of a more masculine toy, then he's going to grow up to be gay or bi or something other than a straight male. In this episode, Monica is also dressed as a female with very, very large breasts for work, as she has to dress up like a character because of working at a diner that has all of their employees dress up as different characters, different show characters. Monica also states in this episode, while Ben is playing with a doll, this is after Carol and Susan have come back to pick up Ben from being with Ross for the day, and Monica is talking to Ross and says, "So what, he was playing with a Barbie, big deal. You used to dress up like a woman." From that point on, she proceeds to talk about how Ross used to dress up as a woman when he was younger and have tea parties, and she even sings the song that he sang when he was younger too. The second thing that is involved with Ben and the doll is an example of gender display, and gender display is how gender is exhibited or portrayed throughout interactions, which is the ways in which we communicate femininity and masculinity through our actions and social situations. For this example, Ross is simply trying to switch the doll for different toys. First, he tries switching it for a tractor or a little car, then he tries to switch it for a dinosaur, and then eventually he gravitates to switching it for a G.I. Joe doll, which is actually slightly ironic if you think about it, because G.I. Joe was still considered a doll and was the male version of a Barbie doll. Also for clip 1, there is symbolic annihilation, and symbolic annihilation thesis is referring to the way that cultural production and media representations ignore, exclude, marginalize, or trivialize women and their interests. So it can also trivialize men and their interests as well. So, for example, this episode of Friends is trivializing how boys playing with dolls is not necessarily something that is a normal expectation of young boys. So the entire episode, Ross is making fun of the fact that, and is uncomfortable of the fact that Ben is playing with a Barbie doll instead of something that is more masculine. And the last thing for this episode is the social construction of gender, which is the idea that society has created and accepted how gender is expressed. For this episode, I associated this with how society has shaped how it's viewed when children play with certain toys. Boys are expected to play with masculine toys such as monster trucks or Lincoln Logs or Legos or anything of the sort, while females are expected to have tea parties and play with Barbie dolls or a different type of doll. So the first question that Ross asks whenever Carol and Susan bring over Ben is, "What's my boy doing with a Barbie?" assuming that the Barbie is not masculine enough for Ben to play with, excuse me, and that he's just very uncomfortable with the fact that his son is playing with a Barbie doll instead of a masculine toy. So clip number 2 that I chose was when Rachel and Ross hire the male nanny, whose name is Sandy. And this episode includes gender stereotyping, which is, again, the simplistic descriptions of the supposed male masculine, or masculine male, excuse me, or feminine female. Towards the middle of this episode, after they go through several different nannies, or possible nannies, Ross is upset because Rachel hired a male nanny for their daughter. When he walks into Monica and Rachel's apartment, he's talking to Joey about the fact that they hired a male nanny, and Joey's statement towards that was, well, that's like a female wanting to be a penis model. He then goes on to say that it just doesn't seem right, and that it's not a job that you would usually expect a male to do. So it poses an issue for the men in this episode. It shows gender display, which again is how gender is exhibited or portrayed through interaction. For example, the ways in which we communicate femininity and masculinity through our actions and social situations. In this episode, the male nanny that they hired likes to bake. He plays the recorder, which I have listed as an instrument, and he makes his own recipe for baby products. For example, he has his own diaper rash and he has his own lotion that he claims are all natural, which baking, playing instruments, having their own recipes for things, again, are not necessarily things that you would usually expect a male to do, and that is why it fits into the gender display, because Ross, again, is making fun of the fact that they hired a male that knows how to do all of these different tasks. This clip also includes symbolic annihilation, which refers to the way cultural production and media representations ignore, exclude, marginalize, or trivialize men or women and their interests. And throughout the entire episode, men are being seen as, male nannies are being seen as a joke throughout the entire episode. And I thought this picture off to the right is a very good picture for this slide, because the male nanny at different points has puppet shows, and towards the end of the episode he ends up actually pulling in Joey to one of his puppet shows, and Joey gets really excited about that. So it kind of breaks the stigma and the stereotype of men being involved in these type of situations. It also involves social construction of gender, which is the idea that society has created and accepted how gender is expressed. Society teaches us that taking care of babies or children is typically a woman's job, and this episode does a great job of breaking that stigma and breaking that stereotype, because out of all of the nannies that they are interviewing and that are potential nannies for their little baby Emma, Ross and Rachel end up hiring this male nanny who does a better job than any of the women when it comes to taking care of their child. It also breaks the stigma and the stereotype that men are to be the ones out working while the woman is at home taking care of the house and the family and everything else that goes along with it, such as cooking. But they ended up hiring a male to take care of the baby while Rachel ends up going back to work in a very highly accredited position at her job of working at the Fashion Institute that she does. Clip 3 involves Monica hiring, well, I say quote-unquote hiring Joey, because she just uses him as a stand-in so that she can make herself seem more of a leader for her chefs. So this episode involves gender stereotyping, because the chefs are laughing at Monica when she tries to be tough. She's a smaller-sized woman, and smaller-sized women tend to not be taken as serious as larger women, and also as she's asking for different things, such as more swordfish or more salads or more anything, she's not taken seriously because of being a small woman, and so as she goes into the freezer to get more swordfish to be able to cook for their meals that night, a male chef closes the freezer door on Monica in an attempt to joke around with her, and she ends up getting covered in marinara sauce, and that just leads to a whole other series of events. And it all stemmed from a male joking around with her just because he thought that he was being funny. This episode involves gender display because Monica hires Joey in a hypothetical sense just so that she can use him as a stand-in, and she then fires him later in the show to show that she is head honcho and needs to be taken seriously. And when she fires him, everybody else in the kitchen then takes her more seriously and ends up seeing her as the boss that she is and the head chef that she is, and takes her into a more leadership position. This third clip also involves symbolic annihilation because Monica is trying to be tough in the kitchen as boss and as head chef, but she's not taken serious by her normal chefs because she is a woman. Unfortunately, too many times when it comes to women in leadership positions, they are not taken as seriously as they need to be because of the fact that they are a woman or because of their size, both of which Monica has going for her because of being smaller sized. And she is able to break that stigma and that stereotype by firing Joey and being taken more seriously. And this also involves social construction of gender because society has shaped us to believe that men are usually the ones in leadership or management positions, whereas Monica is such a great chef that she gets hired as the main chef in this TV show, and is a chef at several different restaurants and uses that to her benefit. And she breaks the societal norms by being in this leadership or management position. So the interdisciplinary concept that I chose was the psychology of stereotyping. Stereotypes are groups that we tend to put people into without even realizing it. They are shared through families, across cultures, between friends, you name it. There are stereotypes everywhere in the world, and what they do is they simply reflect the differences between people. So the differences between myself and somebody of another race, or myself and somebody of another gender. And they also impact how others are treated to a point that can sometimes get out of control. Reserves in the clips that deal with the psychology of stereotyping is the friends have some issue with the breaking of stereotypes of certain things, such as Ben playing with a doll, or a male being a nanny and staying home while a woman is working, as well as women being in leadership positions. For example, Rachel being the head of her department at the fashion institute that she works at, and Monica being the head chef at the restaurant. This show does a great job of breaking the idea of stereotypes and breaking the societal norms, especially in the time that it was made. So conforms and challenges of mainstream norms. Some of the conforms in this show is a woman that is cooking in a kitchen instead of a man. A lot of times women are viewed as the chefs in families instead of the men. A lot of men are breaking that nowadays, but in this show, Monica is a chef, and a very good one at that, but that is conforming to society. And another conforming that another way that they conform to societal norms, sorry about that, is a man suggesting that his son play with a quote-unquote boy's toy instead of a girl's toy. Ross is trying to get his son to play with a more masculine toy instead of a Barbie doll. So the challenges that they use are saying that Ben, who is a very young boy, was at the store with his mother and her lesbian partner, and he chooses a Barbie doll on his own to play with and doesn't go towards the little cars or the trucks or the Legos or Lincoln Logs, you name it. Another challenge that they show is a man being hired for a childcare job and doing a very good job at it, having his own products, associating very well with the young child that he's working with. And Monica is a woman who is in a leadership position who shows her strength by using Joey, and showing her strength against the other chefs and waitresses.